Well, hello, this is Robonzo, and you're about to listen to the Unstarving Musician podcast. First, I would like to give a quick shout-out to my friends at Tract Music for featuring my new song, New Gods Part 2. At the time of this recording in April of 2021, Tract is the exclusive streaming platform for my new song, New Gods Part 2. If you're a fan of independent music, Tract is a great place for music discovery. For the musicians and recording artists among you, it's also a recording and collaborative platform in your pocket. That is changing the way musicians create and share music. Check it out, tractmusic.com, or download the Tract app for iPhone and check out my new song, New Gods Part 2. Let's do the show, shall we? This is the Unstarving Musician podcast. I'm your host, Robonzo. The podcast features conversations with me, indie music artists, and industry professionals, and it's all intended to help other indie music artists be better at marketing, business, the creative process, and all the other things that empower us to do more of what we love. Make music. Brian Wolff returns to the podcast to discuss his transition into live streaming, his live streaming setup, his experience with Patreon, his creative process, and the changes that have brought him into a new chapter of his career. Listen, if you love what I do here at the podcast, by the way, please visit unstarvingmusician.com/crowd sponsor to learn about the many ways that you can show your love and support of the Unstarving Musician. Again, that's unstarvingmusician.com/crowd sponsor to be part of that. So Brian and we also talk about the terrifying moments of doing the first live stream performance, his terrifying moments specifically. Not having the in-person feedback and how that affected him. We talk a little bit about the gear he uses for live streaming, which I think you'll be interested in. We also chat about his newish podcast, Greetings from Wherever. You can hear me in episode 15 of that podcast. It's actually a great podcast, not necessarily my episode, but it's a really good podcast about where creativity comes from in different people. It's pretty cool. Brian talks about writing and working on his creativity, like nurturing his creativity. He writes things down more often. Go figure. I had the sniffles during our conversation, so forgive me. I did a little editing, but there's still some sniffles. In fact, those hardly got edited out at all. Brian's a 3-time offender of the podcast. This is his 4th time on, so I guess that makes him a 4th-time offender. We met on the socials sometime back in 2018 when he first appeared on the podcast. He's a cool guy. That's why he's been on here so many times. I really enjoy chatting with him. He's a good friend. I've actually met him in person, too, in Austin. That was cool. I need to see him play. That would be great. All right, here is me and Brian Wolff. So, how are things in Austin today?
Oh, things are good, man. You know, it's just making the adjustment from getting my fill of being creative by performing for people in person, and adjusting to kind of trying to get that fulfillment from doing stuff online and getting stuff out there. And not only that, just sort of trying to, put music out there and good vibes into the world, in that way, instead of that in person when people might be out at a show on a date or like with their friends or like kind of having that social interaction. Now it's like been interesting trying to kind of utilize the technology to sort of create those moments.
Yeah,
the best way we can.
You've been doing it for several weeks now, right?
Yeah. So my first live stream was like beginning of August, and that was terrifying. That was something I just never thought about doing, and it was like I can't even. It felt like I played my first show. It was like a weird moment. I've done the performing thing so thousands of times at this point. For people in person, but there was something really scary about doing it on a live stream, and just not having that feedback, and like kind of the feedback would come in the form of a comment that I'd see like later, because it's a little bit delayed. So like by the time somebody commented, I was already into a song, and it was just a weird adjustment versus like live when you finish a song you get some applause hopefully, or like just something going on there. It was different adjusting to that, and for some reason absolutely terrifying to me. And then I did it a few times, and then I think by the 3rd or 4th time I did it, it became sort of familiar, so it's a lot more comfortable now. It's still
Good.
weird, but it's, it's like, it's more, I can be myself and, just do my thing, just in a different way.
I watched one of your like recent ones just for a couple minutes before we came on, and it looked good. You definitely have gotten comfortable now, so
thank you.
Good job.
It was funny. I can describe the first one a little bit more, like, and just to kind of explain how far I think I've come with this, just like the first one, man, it felt like I just got off the stage at like this huge show with thousands of people, even though there might have been, 100 people watching total, or something like that. But it felt like I just played this ginormous arena, and like my heart was pounding after I was done. Like as soon as I was done with my last chord, it was like, okay, end stream. All right, I got to go somewhere. I got to go outside or something, breathe. It's like a weird thing, but now it's so just, I do it every Wednesday now at 7:00 Central on the Brian Wolff Music Facebook page. And now that I'm doing it so much, it's so routine. It's so just like fun, It's just like thinking of different kind of sets to do every week, and trying to introduce some themed nights as well, because I would do that live. There'd be kind of special occasions and try to make certain shows like special and stuff. So trying to do that with the live streams now is fun. It's cool to think about.
So what was the most terrifying thing about it at first?
I think it was not knowing whether it sounded terrible or not to the crowd.
Oh yeah, sure.
It was, I think that was the biggest factor of just having no idea what it sounds like on the other end of things. Like, with, when you're playing at a venue, hopefully you have a sound person that knows what they're doing, or like, you, at least if you're running your own sound, you've been able to kind of like check on things and make sure it sounds about right. It's never an exact science when you're doing your own sound and you're on stage, but it's, you can have a little bit more control. But with this, it was like, there was no version of like testing it for me, and like checking and making sure like I just don't sound like crap, and then, it was nice later on to be able to listen back and be like, okay, the guitar's a little quiet, but it doesn't sound awful, and then I could adjust a few things. And then now I've basically introduced the stage monitor that, I have, blasting back at me. So I know exactly what everyone's hearing now because I've got a monitor playing to me. And it's just weird. I never thought of doing that for a live stream for a while, but it's like, I do that every time I'm playing live. Why wouldn't I do that, on this format as well? So it's kind of about doing everything I can to make it feel more like just a real in-person show, even though it's on the internet. It's like the more adjustments I can make to make it feel that like that comfortable thing, that I've done so many times for people, the better off I've been. So
yeah. What tips would you give yourself if you knew you were doing your first, giving yourself a tip, you were going to do your first live one this coming Wednesday? What would you go back in time and tell yourself?
Just relax. Just do all songs you're totally comfortable with. I would say that's not the time to like play something new or like, something you're not familiar with or take some kind of risk. Like it's just play stuff you're comfortable with. And just relax. It's going to sound fine. And even if it doesn't, you'll fix it. It's I think, as far as content creation and like, live stream stuff, because I've been putting out videos of songs that I would play at shows and stuff. I've been putting out like YouTube videos and stuff for that. And, I was so, I don't know about afraid or nervous, but, about doing that for so long when I was playing shows and stuff all the time, because it was like, I've definitely seen a lot of bands where they put something up and it sounds so bad, that I'm like, I never want to hear that band again, and you see like this live footage and you're like, wow, that was a terrible first impression. And like, I didn't want to be that guy. So it was like, in my mind, in a lot of ways, it was like I was seeking perfection with this, like this content thing. And I don't think it was possible. So it was just so overwhelming that I just really didn't do a lot of it. and then, this kind of, this quarantine stuff really forced my hand into like doing this. If I'm going to scratch that itch of performing for people, it's like gotta be, it's just gotta happen. So it's just like, it's perfect or not, I'm going to do it. And, figure it out as I go and make it better and better. So I think just kind of losing that need for this online content to be like the absolute best it can be, and just sort of just relaxing about it and just put it out there, just and figure it out as you go and don't worry so much. I think that's what I would say.
Yeah, good advice. What's your setup for doing the audio, making that happen? And
well, I mean, I've got this Focusrite little audio interface thing. It's pretty simple, really. I just plug in a microphone into it, and then just the same mic I would use to sing at a live venue, and then I can plug my guitar directly into it, and just it gives you the ability to sort of adjust each volume, and I can listen back with this. I use this OBS live streaming software that you can record a little bit of it, listen back, and make sure it sounds all right. But now that I kind of know where the dials should be and stuff, so I don't have to like test it like that every time. But for a while that's what it was, and even with this interface, I can plug headphones into it and make sure it sounds good. But and then I can run a little monitor out of that, so I can hear myself the whole time. And that was a big thing. A lot of feedback I got for the first 3 or 4 before I started using a monitor was that when I was talking, which live stream stuff, I definitely talk a little bit more than I would on stage at a bar or a venue or something. But it's just a little bit more, I don't know. It's a little more conducive to that. I'm at home. We're, kind of like talking, connecting in a different way. But, I found a lot of feedback I got was that, when I would talk, it would be so quiet, and then I would sing and it would be super loud. And it was like, okay, I have to be able to hear myself. That was the solution. And then, it was, plugging into a monitor, and then that really fixed it. 'Cause now I can just hear if I don't hear myself talking, that means they can't hear it, and that was super, super helpful for me. And that problem really has gone away. So that's been good.
So the OBS software, what did that set you back? What are the price models for that?
It's free.
Oh, cool.
At least the version that I use.
Okay.
I don't know if there's a paid version, but yeah, it's free.
What else does it do? What's the primary purpose of it?
Well, you can put little like links at the bottom of the screen. You could do a lot of stuff if you really want to. For me, I'm pretty simplistic about it. Like it's, once I go live, there's a screen that says live stream starting soon with my photo on it, because I'm just never quite totally ready to like start the show. So It's just like, there might be a few things I have to do. Like, if it's going live, I'll find it on Facebook and share it on my personal page or share it on a couple groups. So I'm hoping to get some more audience that way, so just having a little bit of that behind the scenes moment, 30 to 40 seconds of that, and then hit start. And then, the image comes down and then you just see me, and that's kind of a nice thing. You can kind of play with stuff like that, and then have a link to my Patreon and a link to Venmo as well, like just on the screen the whole time while you're watching me play, which is helpful. I mean, we're all trying to get by in this weird time. So, giving people the option to support in that way is a good thing.
How has that part of it worked out? Or how are the fans pretty supportive?
Yeah, it's been good. I think the first 5 or 6 live streams I did, it was like every time I got a few, like 1 or 2 patrons every time that were just like, okay, cool. I didn't know that was a thing. And I would talk about it a little bit. I try not to like overdo it. I mean, I want to let people know it's a thing, but I also don't want to like just pound that in. Like, I don't want to just seem like I just want people to watch to give me money, I also appreciate that they're just watching, but it's, for a while there, it was like almost every show there would be, a new patron or so. And it slowed down a little bit, but, it's to be expected. I think it was kind of the original blast of like, here's the thing that I'm doing, and just kind of letting people know. And then the people that wanted to do it were like, cool, let me sign up. That's awesome. And other people are like, maybe later. at least they know about it,
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's been interesting. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely pushed some people towards the Patreon. Just having a platform to push the information out there is nice. And that's been, the Patreon has been really cool. That's a new thing this year too, for sure.
Are you taking requests? You playing covers, originals?
So I've been, for the live stream, it's been a little bit, for the most part, half and half, cover and original. But some nights I'll just come out and play all original stuff, or maybe one cover. But fun thing with the Patreon is every month, if they're at the festival stage headliner level of the Patreon tier or whatever, they can get in the running for a patron of the month thing. And basically, if they're selected, which I do on the live streams now, and the most recent one was this past like 2 nights ago on Wednesday. I did a coin toss because there were like 2 people that hadn't gotten it yet, that it was between. So I flipped a coin, and somehow I was like, had my guitar and like, looking at the camera, flipped this coin. I was like, okay, this person's heads, this person's tails, and then I flipped the coin, and somehow, I don't even know how this physically happened, but it went down my shirt. It was hilarious. It's just like, oh my God, this is why you guys have to watch this live stream. You don't know like when I'm going to do something ridiculous like that, like totally unintentionally hilarious. But it was a very funny moment. And of course I had to reflip it. How do you determine who won if the quarter's down your shirt, but it was funny. A very funny moment. But yeah, what they get with that is to request any song. So that's like, and it's been interesting so far. There's been 3 patrons of the month so far, and it's ranged from Nirvana to Talking Heads to Johnny Cash and June Carter, like, and just so it's legit, like whatever you want, I will do my best at it, and just figure it out the best version on acoustic guitar that I can do, and like while playing and singing, it's an interesting thing. And those are all 3 songs that I didn't know before. So that's, also I'm learning stuff that way.
Wait, so are you doing it on the spot, or how's that working?
No. So like every, at the end of every month, I'll pick the patron of the month for the following month.
Okay.
And then I'll let them know, like, hey, if they weren't watching the live stream, which sometimes they are, sometimes they aren't, but I'll let them know the next day, hey, you're patron of the month. You get to choose a song. Let me know within the next week or so, if you can. Usually it doesn't take people too long, more than a couple days, and then they'll let me know. And then I'll usually take a couple weeks to learn it, kind of whenever I have moments of free time to dig into this song and really take a good crack at it. The Talking Head song was Once in a Lifetime, and that's such an electronic song, and such a just weird David Byrne song, like him just kind of just being just 1,000% David Byrne on that one, and it's like a really interesting thing to try to dig into that and do my own version of that. And that took a while and a lot of thought, but it was a fun project for sure.
I would think that the vocal cadence against the guitar playing would be really tough on that song. And
well, it's like that rhythm, doon 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 doon, and that kind of thing, and then trying to like sing something interesting over that, and like which is a totally different rhythm. It was weird, man. It was like it's like patting your head and rubbing your belly at the same time, that whole thing. Like it was, like singing and playing can already feel like that sometimes, especially when I was starting out. But there's moments like that where there's just like vastly different rhythms between the two things, and that's I feel like drummers have to do that all the time, but that's thankfully
sometimes.
Yeah, but yeah, man, it was an interesting song to learn for sure.
Yeah, I bet. Well, that's cool. Like I was going to be like totally blown away if you were doing that on the fly.
Oh no. If it's a song I've played before, sure, but it's the whole like learning something I've never tried before. Nope. Yeah. I'm not that cool. Magical.
So I think I'm almost positive I asked you about this last time we spoke, which we went through that list of questions I had related to the second edition of my book, and thanks for doing that, by the way. But
oh yeah,
I think I might have asked you. I don't know if we were recording or not, but I'll ask again. So what's happening, or what has happened to the Say It Loud podcast?
Yeah, so that's kind of interesting because it was tied to Fair City Fire, and that kind of bigger picture sort of story. A couple of the members of Fair City Fire have left, moved on from the band, and it's nothing dramatic, man. I don't have like this drama story for you, man. I'm sorry. It's just very much like a couple guys decided, that they wanted to kind of pursue other things in their life, and it's totally fine. I totally understand that. They both got married this year, so it just sort of it just felt like the right time, and I think this whole quarantine stuff was pretty sobering for a lot of people, and kind of made them look at their lives and the big picture thing. And for them, Fair City Fire wasn't in their future, which it's a hard thing to hear, but it's also understandable. And the thing is, I think the Say It Loud podcast kind of went with that. It's those two guys were so in it, and one of them was roommates with the host of the show, Matt Jones. So it was just kind of tough to imagine it continuing. We had a lot of fun with that, and I learned so much about podcasting, and it really kind of led into the podcast that I'm doing now. I've kind of taken over and been the sole person working on this new podcast, which is really interesting, but I don't think I would have had anywhere near like the leg up that I did when I started this new show called Greetings from Wherever. Having done the Say It Loud podcast for, I think, 4 or 5 years, something like that. Wow. Most of the time we were a band that was a part of it. We're not necessarily done as far as Fair City Fire, but those two guys leaving, that's a big blow. So, and right now it's like we haven't quite we haven't made a decision yet, so we haven't really been public about whether we've broken up or not. We're just not sure ourselves. Like, it's possible, like Joe's the drummer, he's still around, so it's a thing we talk. We're like, maybe in like 6 months we'll be hanging out at a pool having a beer and just say like, let's get the band going again, and it'll just happen, and we'll like find a new bass player and new guitar player and just hit the road and all that stuff. But I don't know if that's how we're going to feel at that time or not. It's
sure.
But for now I've been kind of pursuing my solo stuff and just getting that moving. So we'll see, man.
So are you continuing to write then?
I've been writing a lot actually this year. It's been especially over the last few months, it's been a very, very productive writing time. Probably the most productive of my whole career. Really, just having a lot of time to just kind of sit and think, and I go on hikes too. That's really helpful for me to like clear my mind and get ideas. So that's been really good, and having a little bit more time to do that has been good. And yeah, just there's a lot of material to write about. Not that I'm writing all these songs about COVID or quarantine or anything. I don't think I have any that are about that, but it's interesting how when things are a little bit off, or seem somewhat terrible, it's a gold mine time to write music. I don't know. It's like a mind frame thing.
Sure.
And not that I'm writing these super negative songs, but it's just like, that's just, kind of where my brain needs to be sometimes to be the most creative. And sure. There's that. And there's also, I've done a lot of work on my creativity and, really, making sure I make time for it, kind of trying to establish some routines. I read a book called The Artist's Way that was really helpful for me. And, it's really, it's almost like a self-help kind of book, but there's a lot of like essays and stuff in it about that you read about, like, kind of being creative. But then there's a lot of, after every chapter, there's like basically exercises that ask you like really kind of difficult questions about you as a person, your upbringing, and also like, how you as an artist as well. And it's answering those questions and really giving them the thought that they deserve has really helped me kind of just know myself better. And also some of the exercises like the morning pages in it help me kind of get rid of the just censor that I have of myself sometimes. Like when I'm writing, it's really easy to go to this place of, or it was really easy. It's getting less easy to do this, but I would be playing a song and like think of a lyric and be like, oh no, that sounds stupid, and and then just that disappears forever, But what I'm learning now is write that down. Write it down. You might just be being like a monster to yourself at the moment, and then later on you're like, oh, that actually is pretty cool. It's
that's good.
It's an interesting thing how that can work, and shutting yourself down can be so it's such a hindrance to creativity. And the thing is too, like, it's so much easier for me as a songwriter to edit something that I've already written down. So like, even if it's a garbage idea, let me get it on there and then I can fix it later and make it better, as opposed to like that idea never existing.
And now a quick word from our affiliate partner, and then back to the interview. This episode is powered by Bandzoogle, the most effective platform for musicians and bands to build their website and manage direct-to-fan marketing and sales. Powering over 55,000 websites, Bandzoogle features powerful design options, a commission-free store to sell merch, music, and tickets, a built-in mailing list tool, detailed fan data, integrations with social networks, and more. Plans start at just $8.29 a month, which includes a free custom domain name. You, indie musician, can try it out for free at bandzoogle.com. And you can use the promo code ROBONZO, ROBONZO, to get 15% off your first year of any plan. Again, that's bandzoogle.com, promo code ROBONZO, ROBONZO. I know what you mean. I've had kind of an interesting experience with a newer song I'm working on now. It's been spanning several weeks for, I guess, the usual reasons, like initially just trying to get the inspiration to find the melodic piece that fit the music, and then executing a vocal I was happy with. But what I found was kind of funny. I didn't edit myself too much on it to begin with. I kind of try to do that as well. I tend to draft kind of a prose thing, sort of free form, and then go back to it and try and craft it into lyrics. But in this case, I noticed myself doing a little bit of that editing or censoring, only to the effect that not so much like, oh, that's stupid, but I've been thinking, oh, you know what, I think this would sound a little bit better. And it was based a little bit on feedback. My wife was listening to it for me, and she had commented, there's this one line that sounds like, I think what she was trying to describe to me, was a little, I don't even know if she used the word awkward, but it sort of sounded like the timing, the cadence wasn't quite right. And so just went into that place specifically and edited some stuff. But anyway, that's good. I think that's a good little tip that was in there that you give, that, write it down. Don't edit yourself to death before you have a chance to sleep on it or whatever, or let it marinate.
Yeah, I think that's true. And just having something to edit later is huge, even if it's not that good. And you still realize that the next day. You have something to work with. I think that's helpful.
Yeah, for sure. I've heard of The Artist Way. I don't think I've ever read it. It's kind of funny. I don't remember, but I was asking another guest who was on a while back about it, because I saw that they were really into it. So what new endeavors are you thinking of? Can you see beyond the current strangeness of the pandemic right now? And are you thinking of anything that you might want to do at that time? Or maybe it doesn't hinge on the pandemic at all, but do you have your sights set on doing something creatively new or different?
Well, it's been interesting kind of thinking about like the business side of things. So I got laid off from my nonprofit job a few months ago, and that was a lot to deal with. Kind of a struggle, but a lot of people are getting laid off this year. It's something that, I think a lot of people can relate to. It was no fault of our own. There was just no money left for different reasons, but it's just kind of having to adjust and trying to figure things out. And thankfully I had already had the Patreon going, but also one of the volunteers that I was kind of supervising reached out and said, "Hey, I could use some help with just like promoting my music online." She's just, she's been doing music forever. She's been in Austin for at least, 20, 30 years and just has a bunch of albums,
Wow.
has some stuff on Spotify, but like doesn't know how to really promote herself online. And it's just something I've been doing for myself for as long as I can remember. So when she asked me for help on that, I was like, that sounds awesome. And you want to pay me money to do that? That's really cool. Like it's, and she didn't really know me as a musician. She knew me as an organized person that, worked at this nonprofit thing. She didn't even know that side of me, but she just kind of found this trust in me for that. So I've been helping her, ever since she reached out. I was like, yes, let's do it. I'm looking for something, anything to go do. And the fact that it used skills that I'd already kind of established, and I was able to kind of dive in more with that. So that's been interesting. And I've actually since then gotten another client for that, and another person asked me to help him edit his podcast. So I've been having regular kind of freelance creative gigs every week. And that's been really interesting and opened my eyes to the possibility of like, okay, it doesn't have to be 40-hour week job or full-time music performing. It can be sort of like this combination of things where I'm still my own boss and kind of working for who I want to and setting my own hours, but also going out and playing. So I think I envision the future of my career really revolving around both things, like kind of establishing this little side business, whatever you want to call it. It might be the main, I don't know, but of just sort of virtual assisting with online music promotion. I think that's what I would call it. But it's been cool. So kind of envisioning a future for myself where both of those things are happening, and I'm putting out music and performing, but really being able to be a little bit more picky about the shows that I'm doing, because it wouldn't just be like, okay, I've got to make X amount of money this month, I better take that gig. It's like, well, that money's lower now because I'm doing this other stuff. So it's gonna, I think, give me a nice freedom and hopefully longevity, because I really don't want to ever stop making music a big part of my career and all that stuff. Like it's something that I just always want to be doing and make it an important part of my life for sure.
That's great. I'm happy to hear that. So what is the new podcast about?
Well, it's super fun. I think the Artist's Way kind of opened my mind to thinking about the creative process in a different way, and just sort of how everybody gets there. And so this show is really about that. And I started to, listen to a lot of podcasts this year, having a little bit more time to do that. And on those hikes, that's what I listen to a lot, is podcasts. Yeah. And, a lot of it's interviewing these people that I respect and admire, like musicians, comedians, all these people who are creating this amazing stuff. But they'll talk about the creative process for only a sliver of the show. And that's like the moment those are the moments when my ears are already perked up, and I'm like, oh, I want to hear the whole show be about that. So I thought to myself, like, I should just make that show. And so now that's really what I'm going for. I definitely let the conversations go where they're going, but it's I always try to bring it back to that. Like, okay, how did you think about how you wrote that line in the song, or how there's filmmakers, there's an author that was on the show already, photographer, I've got a painter coming on the show. So it's a little bit of everything. And it's so fascinating so far to hear how many of these formats are so similar in a lot of ways.
Sure.
Like, it was interesting. I was talking to that painter yesterday. We had our interview that'll come out probably before this episode comes out on your show, but from now it's going to be a couple weeks still. But he was talking about how when he's done with the painting, he does this whole process where he hangs up a painting on the wall above his fireplace and has this like appropriate lighting on it and stuff, and make sure he looks at it and like really takes it in, and then figures out whatever changes he needs to make to it. And I was like, that's the same thing as musicians going to like listen to their song from the studio in the car or at home, and then making adjustments later. I'm like, that's the same idea. But it's funny, like I would have never really thought about that side of things and how that's connected like that without having talked to different creatives. And they're really, the whole idea of being greetings from wherever is that there's people from all over the place. It's, like kind of like your show. It's, it's not just like you're interviewing people in Panama, you're interviewing me in Austin. And I've interviewed, the author was from Jersey. One of the songwriters was from Denver. A lot of Austin people, just because that's who I know. But it's it's been cool so far, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what directions it takes. But
that's nice. How many episodes in are you?
So I think I am about to release the 8th episode. So I'm planning on doing kind of seasons where like each season is about 10 episodes long, and then taking a little break, kind of thinking about how I can readjust things and make things different for the second season. And that's kind of where I'm at now. But I've got 2 more episodes for this season, and then we'll kind of go from there.
That is such a great idea. I everyone I talk to that is thinking about starting a podcast, if they say they're thinking about doing seasonal, I'm like, do it, because give yourself a way to take a break. It's great. Otherwise you can sort of impose this never-ending deadline on yourself. But
yeah, I don't want that.
Yeah, I know some podcasts are just not really necessarily built to be seasonal, or is that the right word, seasonal? But
yeah.
But that's great. That's a great idea, and I love that you're doing that too. It's funny. I'm sure you've gathered this from me, but the Morning Tempo podcast that I do for small business, I think this had happened the first time you were on there, but I had decided after doing it for a while that I wanted to explore the creative side of small business and entrepreneurship. And for whatever reason, I feel like I'm kind of struggling to do that. I still love the interviews because we're talking about mechanics of the business, the beginning of it, the challenges, and just almost exactly the same type of questions that I do in the Unstarving Musician. But with the Unstarving Musician, I can clearly ask, which I'm about to give you a related question for yourself, but I can clearly ask about creative process. What I've found with a lot of small businesses and entrepreneurial people who aren't necessarily musicians or artists, sometimes I mention ask about the creative aspect of something, and they don't really, more times than not so far, and it could just be the way I'm asking the question, they don't see a connection a lot of times,
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, maybe it's because I think that, if you're running a small business and not necessarily like a painter or like, someone who's considered an artist, like by society, maybe it's harder for them to think of themselves as like creative people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, so maybe it's just like an identity thing, and like what business do I have talking about that or something, like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to put words in their mouth, but it's an interesting thought maybe.
Yeah. I know some of them are clearly creative, and you can see it on their Instagram or whatever, and so I can ask a little easier. But I imagine that it's something I'll just have to learn to tease out of people, in conversation, and think about the questions a little more. Maybe I'll listen to your podcast too and see what you're doing with these artistic types and see how it might apply. Just hearing someone else do it, see how it applies.
Well, yeah, it's interesting, because I was definitely worried that might be a thing of people like being either protective of their process or just not knowing how to talk about it, or I wasn't really sure how it was going to go, but I was like, let's just try this thing. And so far, man, we're 8 episodes in, and everybody's been really open about it and like really thoughtful, and everybody's kind of saying something different, which makes it cool. It's not, and that's sort of something that I thought was interesting too, thinking about this show, is just like, every time I hear somebody talk about how they write songs or how they, create whatever it is they're creating, it just seems to be a different kind of approach, and something is different about it that's like profound, and it's just there's no one way to do it, and I think that's a really interesting aspect of it too.
Absolutely. I think it's a wonderful thing for people to hear about other people's creative processes because it gives us ideas sometimes when we need them. I know
Yeah.
that I pulled some of my current process from things I've read long ago or things I might have heard or read somewhat recently. So definitely a good framework or topic to be dealing with.
Well, yeah, I think that's true, and also I think when you kind of going back to the author, like I think whenever I've read books and I didn't know the guy, or I actually know him from like childhood, so this might not be the best example, but when I've read books before, it's just sort of like it's a total world I just like don't understand, like trying to write something long like that, and it kind of seems like magic in a lot of ways of like just sitting down for however long it takes to write 300 pages of just a really creative story, and like
Sure.
to hear someone talk about it, it kind of gives it like okay, I'm just like a regular dude, just or regular chick, just kind of just coming up with this cool stuff, and it's just kind of humanizes the whole thing in a lot of ways.
Well, that's neat. So I did want to ask you about your creative process and if the current way that you're letting the music flow, in this time of quarantine, how it has maybe changed or maybe how you sense it's evolving. Is it?
Yeah, it is. It's well, it's interesting because I mentioned how live streams seemed so scary at first, and like just sort of like, okay, let me not take a chance on the type of songs that I'm playing. But now it's become more comfortable, so I'm able to really try and work out these songs that probably would never see the light of day until they were a lot further down the line, as far as performing them live in a venue or something. But like I'm able to try this stuff kind of in front of an audience and listen back right away, because I'm not recording all the shows that I ever play out in the world. So like, but now every time I live stream, I can listen back. And not that I do that a ton, but there's some stuff where like if I'm working on a specific song and really trying to revamp it, I can listen back, and I think that's going to be an important thing going forward. On Patreon, I've promised that every month I'll put out 2 kind of bonus videos for Patreon only, and they're all original stuff, and it's all stuff that hasn't been released yet. So it's like I have to be writing, I have to be so to always have stuff for that. So kind of I've always felt like deadlines are really important for me to like really get in gear and just have something totally done. And for a while, sometimes I would just go to an open mic or something for that reason, like just to play something new and just be like, okay, I have to have some version of this that doesn't totally suck and is a complete product if I'm going to go play for people. But now it's like I have Patreon for that, which is cool. And they're also paying customers, so there's a little bit more pressure on that too, where it's like, not that I really put a ton of pressure on it, but like it's I want it to be good, right? Like they're supporting people and they want to see my career go well and stuff. So it's been an interesting motivator in that way. But yeah, as far as that goes, I've been learning piano. I've been coming up with some ideas on piano, which is really a brand new thing this year too. I started piano a few years back, but going back to just having a little bit more time to do that and kind of explore, like really learn full songs and learning my own songs on piano, which is a really interesting thing. I'm not quite at the level where I'm comfortable doing that on a live stream, but I've done a couple videos for Patreon just doing that. So it's kind of all over the place, man. It's just been adjusting here and there to a little bit of everything, but I think the creative process has been really, for my own standards, thriving this year for sure.
Good. Glad to hear that. So I never had, since you talked about well, you didn't say taking chances. I don't think you said taking chances, but that's what I sort of like translated to my head. Trying things. You were talking about trying things nowadays live on the streams, where in the earlier, when you first started, you wouldn't as much. But I never had the pleasure, or I haven't had the pleasure of seeing Fair City Fire play live. Were you guys that way? Did you take many chances on stage, or did you try to stick to, rehearse your stuff and go out and do it so that it was as polished as you could make it?
We always try to make it as polished as possible.
Sure.
More so than I would like approaching like a live stream show. And also it's a little bit different when there's like 3 other guys playing the same song. So it's just like everybody kind of has to be on the same page. So, in order for it to not be a train wreck, it has to be a little bit more polished. Whereas like if I'm playing something that I wrote and it's just me, if I kind of forget a chord or something, it's pretty easy for me to get back on track. But I don't have to like go around and be like, hey guys, we're going to switch that to a G for this song because I can't remember, It's kind of funny.
That is funny. You look back at what are the other guys doing?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, sure. I can see that you just have a lot more room to be impromptu if you want to be, or to liberate your mistakes if they happen. Let them
for
be
sure,
something.
man. Sometimes it's all about just being a good BS artist,
For sure. For sure. Well, man, it's always a pleasure to talk to you. I appreciate you making time for me today. I will check out the podcast and be sure that we post it in the show notes. Anything else you want to leave people with today?
Yeah, I mean, just thank you so much for listening and for having me on the show. This has been really cool. If you want to support my music, Brian Wolff Music on Instagram or Facebook, and then Brian Wolff Music on Patreon as well, if you'd like to support in that way. And really aiming to put out some new music next year. We'll kind of see how things work out, but I've got a lot of songs in the works that I'm really excited to hit the studio about. So be on the lookout for that stuff too.
I can't wait to hear it, man. All right, you be well.
Yeah, be safe, man. Thank you so much.
I have been asking you to check out my new single, On Top of the World, available wherever you get your music, including Robonzo.com, my artist website. You can also find the new lyric video at Robonzo.com. On Top of the World was released January 8th, 2021, and well, I'm still excited about it. So I hope you'll check it out. But now I'm crazy excited to tell you that you can stream my forthcoming single, New Gods Part 2, on Tracked Music for iPhone. It is the exclusive streaming platform where you can check out New Gods Part 2. It's my personal homage to, yes, Zeppelin, Genesis, and prog rock, with a bit of commentary on the world we live in. I hope you like it. Again, you can hear it on Tracked Music, the app for iPhone, or on trackedmusic.com, and that's TRACKD, no E, trackedmusic.com. Link in the show notes. Thanks again for listening. If you loved this episode, please subscribe or follow on your favorite podcast/audio platform. It'll help you stay on top of the latest episodes and help other indie musicians and indie music fans find the podcast. And if you have feedback, please go to unstarvingmusician.com to get all my contact info. You can text me, call me, email me, leave a voice message right there on that page. Just go down to the bottom of the page and you'll find everything you need to know. I really would love to hear any of your comments, suggestions, questions, whatever you've got. And you can find links to just about everything talked about in this episode at unstarvingmusician.com/podcast. All right, I'm peacing out. Thank you for listening and sharing with your musician friends and fellow indie music fans. Peace, gratitude, and a whole lot of love.